All right, good morning, everyone. Time to do a little bit of trivia. What national day is it? Today is National Teachers Day. So I want to thank all of those dedicated teachers for their commitment to our kids and teaching them lessons both academically and in life. We'll try and tie this into one of our sponsors. Ben, here's a free lesson for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
You probably already know that industrial safety sells practically everything that goes on a fire station, in a fire station, and on a firefighter. I know that.
I know.
But let me educate you on this.
Oh, nice.
They do much more, including kitchen suppression system maintenance, inspection, and installation. For more information, you can visit the website at industrialsafetystore.com.
That's good. I'll give you 7 out of that one. That was good. I like that one.
All right. All right. It is also National Lumpy Rug Day. So if you're going to be purchasing a lumpy rug today, what better accessory to go with your new rug than a new house? And when you do, we recommend our friends from Wisconsin Lakes team. Anyone can say that they're an agent, but not everyone treats their clients as they would like to be treated themselves. And that's what Aaron and Katie do. You can find out more about them by visiting lakesteamwi.com. How about that one?
I'm going to give you a 10 on that one. Anything that has to tie into just buy a new house. I love it. That was a 10 out of 10. I'm going to tell Fitzy about that one next week.
Yeah, great. We have a couple more national days that we'll talk about in the show.
Okay.
That relates to our guest, and we'll do that in a little bit.
Awesome.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. It's Positive Tuesday, and it's May 3rd, 2022. Fitz is off today, so we're being joined by Polk County Sheriff Brent. Ben Dryden is running the boards for me, and I'm Kirk Anderson. I'll be today's host. You're watching Positive Tuesdays with Ben and Fitz. Fitzy, presented by Professional Exteriors and Interiors. With nearly 20 years of experience, this locally owned and operated business has provided quality work in roofing, garages, siding, window installations, kitchens and bathroom remodels, vinyl and hardwood flooring, and they can even build your house or business from the ground up. Like Fitzy and Ben, I believe that the little things make a big difference. So give them a call at 715-520-2271. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for being on. Brent, good morning, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. And Ben, good morning, friend. Thanks for letting me host the show today. How are you?
Yeah, by the way, this is fantastic. Not having to do any work. Now I know what Fitzy feels like every show. Like he doesn't do anything. I've been doing this wrong the whole time. This is fantastic. I don't have to do anything.
I'm just glad that you don't have a sign that says, my emotions if I'm nervous or struggling to find my spot on the notes.
Yeah, that's kind of on par for how the show goes when you host. We just kind of make it up. And Brent, I wore a special hat. You see that? I'm afraid you're a little too on the nose there.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that too. Brent spent some time with Adam down at the southern border, and as well as Sheriff Fitzgerald. So we're excited to hear a little bit more about that, and definitely have a great show lined up. So let's find out how things have been going for you guys. Brent, what's your highs and lows for the week? It's only Tuesday, but let's go back 1 week. What's been good in your life?
Well, the weather is the low. I'm going to say that right now. The weather is definitely the low point. This is just the grip of winter will not let go. So I have a lot of kids in sports, and the spring sports are all getting delayed, and it's just difficult that way. I would say the high point is this week we are celebrating National Corrections Officers Week.
Right.
So that's a big thing, and all the men and women that work in the corrections field in law enforcement, this is their week where we honor them. So that's a great week.
All right. Well, that's great, and congratulations to all the corrections officers. I've been in the Polk County Justice Center in the jail facility for a tour. I've done some video work in there, and just last week I was up in Sawyer County with Adam, and we did a tour of the Sawyer County jail as well, and that was real interesting. So those individuals have unique and trying and rewarding careers. So congratulations to them, and we'll definitely give them our best.
So the correction officer week, so we had a telecommunications week. Those are separate, right?
They are.
Okay. So corrections officers would be jailers? Is that under the umbrella of that?
Absolutely. And this profession largely goes, they're kind of the ones behind the scenes, but ultimately at a sheriff's office, we're a team and we need every member to make this show go on. So it's kind of a neat time. Like last week 2 weeks ago, we had telecommunicators week. Now we have corrections officer appreciation week. And then in 2 weeks, we have National Police Week. So it's kind of our big month-long time to celebrate and honor the people that work and sacrifice in this line of work.
So, I think Brent probably knows this, but Ben, how do you think a day like or a week like Corrections Week comes about? Who usually makes those?
Boy, you're asking tough questions already. Yep. I decided I don't like I'd rather go back to being the host and asking the questions. Do you already know? Is this a trivia? Do you already know the answer?
He told me as we were getting ready, but
wow, thanks for hanging me out to dry here. Who does? I'm just going to guess a politician looking to score votes.
Well, in this case, it was President Reagan back in 1984.
That counts.
Decided
that's right.
That he wanted to honor corrections workers and the work that they're doing. So that was a week that he set aside, similar to other national days. And we have a lot of them. I stumbled upon a calendar that just outlined every day. There is something every day, whether it's National Pie Eating Contest or it's just crazy. So there's always something to celebrate.
And Dirk, thank you. He's our weather guy. He always gives us weather updates. So 50 degrees, warm and close to what? 70 degrees by the weekend. That's outstanding.
Yeah.
I mean, is it or isn't it? So for you, Brent, as the sheriff in Polk County, warm weather, does that impact, I don't know, crime or speeders?
Oh, it does. If we have a weather that's, not as much goes on a rainy night as a beautiful day. People are more active and there's more traffic and there's more call for law enforcement. But we like the nice weather. I will say, too, that bad weather, like what we've experienced, can have an impact on people's mental health. I mean, if we have gloomy, rainy days and this gripping long winter, people's mental health deteriorates. So the weather can definitely impact what we do.
Yeah. Well, I know sitting outside at a baseball game in snow pants, as my wife was doing last week, and wrapped up in a blanket and watching the kids trying to catch a ball with frozen hands. It's a little bit challenging. I think they'll enjoy the warmer weather for sure. So that's good. Brent, you also mentioned that there's another National Drug Court Month, and that's something when you got elected 4 years ago, you talked about mental health, you talked about drug courts, you talked about a number of different things. Tell us a little bit about this National Drug Court Month and why you want to highlight that.
Well, I want to encourage the citizens out there. Just about every county has set up a drug court, although they typically like to refer to them now as treatment court. But May is Drug Court Month, and every county typically has a CJCC, which stands for Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. And I happen to be the chair of the council here in Polk County. And we get all the stakeholders involved in the criminal justice system, and we meet quarterly, and then we have various committees that meet monthly. And the goal of all this is to get it so we can look at criminal justice trends. And through this process, these treatment courts have been established. And Polk County has a very successful treatment court. There's typically about 17 people participating in the treatment court. There's several phases to it. And the goal is to get people that are addicted to substance abuse, get those people some help that they need and get them on a path so that they don't have to come back to jail. I mean, the goal of this is to avoid the recidivism that people, this cycle of arresting the same people over and over. So I just want to tip my hats to the hard work that the people that do the treatment court, the nice work they do, and the judge as well. We have a circuit judge, Judge Tolan, that is the one who oversees the treatment court, and it's been very successal here.
Hey, I have a quick question. I want to jump in. When did it change to treatment court instead of drug court? This is literally the first time I've heard of that. But that's not too surprising for me. But I didn't know that was changed. When was that changed?
Well, it's just more nomenclature. I mean, it's still drug court, but it's I think it's more referred to as treatment court in our neck of the woods here.
Okay.
Nice. Well, Ben, let's head back to you and get your highs for the week and what has been good for you.
Nothing. Everything's the worst. No, we don't really
not
have a
very
whole lot
Wisconsin
of.
of
Yeah,
you.
I know. It's not very positive. Well, here's the positive of it. It could get worse. Right? See, that's positive thinking. No, everything has been going great. There hasn't been, any highs or lows really at all. So I think that's the positive. Is just that. And honestly, I'm totally loving this. I have some guests coming up this week because obviously with an election cycle, we're doing shows on Thursdays and Fridays now. So I think Kevin Nicholson's coming on. I think he's running for governor, I think this Thursday. And then Friday will be Ben Vogel, who's running for lieutenant governor. So there's a lot of those. So that's why this is just fantastic of just like being on the show, but not hosting the show. This is just wonderful. This is the highlight of my week.
Well, I've noticed an uptick in your show amounts with the number of people that are running for governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state. There is a full line of guests that you could certainly invite. And I know they're all scrambling to be on your program because you are the number one news outlet in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Independently run, for digital news outlets, the number one independently run news outlet in the entire state, which is stupid because we don't cover most things outside of our region. I mean, it's just dumb. I have no business running this business. Hey, there's a question here. I'm assuming this is for you, Brent, from Kevin Lewis. What is the repeat offender rate?
And I guess if we could narrow that down as far as I don't have the specific number, but I can tell you that every month, about 40% of the total arrests in Polk County involve substance abuse. Mm-hmm. So if we can address that, that's a large part of the criminal justice problem in Polk County.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's a conservative number. So for example, when we look at that data, we only pull if you've got a drug charge or an intoxicated driving or impaired driving charge. So if you get caught doing a burglary, it might very well because you're supporting your drug habit, but that's not going to count as a drug arrest. So ultimately, I think the number's higher. I think we're probably 50-60% of the
arrests I see.
Involved.
So if you're involved in another crime, but the main crime isn't the drug, like shoplifting or child endangerment.
What drug has to be? So how does that work, Brent? Is it the first thing you're charged with, or is it the higher? If there was a felony, like first offense, marijuana, for example. That's always a wonderful topic to talk about. It's usually, depending on a lot of the amount and et cetera, and if you're selling, usually that's going to be a misdemeanor. But first offense meth is typically going to be, is going to be a felony typically.
Right.
So how do they decide which is which?
Well, we pull the data just to that's a large part of what these CJCC groups want to look at is the data. And that's the one thing we have here is statistics of who's arrested and what they're arrested for. And if we see trends, like we saw during COVID, an uptick right around the time stimulus checks would come out, we would see an uptick in the drug activity because people got this money and they were spending it in that arena. And we had an increase. So that's the reason for looking at the data. But we have, we have a conservative number to do it, to pull the stats and say these people were arrested for a drug offense. These people had property crimes. It's probably all intermixed. So I think the number is even higher than we think.
Yeah. Well, I have my positive Tuesday tip, and this is to entice Ben to come out to Polk County and visit St. Croix Falls, where I am honored to be the mayor. We broke ground this last month on our new Quick Trip, and we're hoping that by the end of August we will have a Quick Trip store open and running. And I know that Quick Trip, might entice Ben. I know a lot of law enforcement's excited about this new store, so So come on out and visit, Ben. It would be
The
great
new
to see
quick
you.
trip. All right, there's
Do a
another
really
one
good.
going in Spooner, so we'll have two, which is
You
just
get you get
ridiculous.
2. Oh my
In
goodness.
Spooner.
Yeah. Well, we're just breaking ground on our first, so
Attaboy.
we're excited.
We're excited. I love it.
So let's talk a little bit about Polk County since we don't have Chris here from Barron County, but we do have Brent here from Polk County. What are some of the press releases and articles that have been put out for Polk County recently, Ben? And maybe
There was one, yeah. So we
Any
typically do, like when it's Fitzy and I, any press releases that he sends or any articles that I've written, crime and court related. But that's Barron County. Well, obviously, right now it's a very Polk heavy show today with both of you on for Polk. The only one that I had seen was recently. It was the headline was fatal ATV crash in Polk County near Apple River.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that a lot of our press releases involve these tragedies, and they are tragedies, and there's a human factor to it. But yes, we had a person who was from Minnesota have a rollover ATV crash. Apple River Township is kind of the central part of Polk County, and unfortunately, he did not survive his injuries, and he was not wearing a helmet. And I'm obviously a promoter of wearing a helmet if you're out doing sports like that. I'm an avid ATV rider, and I try to always wear a helmet when I'm out there. But these things are tragic, and so we do a press release because people want to know. They hear the sirens, they hear the helicopter. This case involved the patient getting airlifted to the Twin Cities, and those are the best facilities you can go to when you've had a trauma case. To get that person to those trauma centers in the big city is priceless. But unfortunately, in this case, the gentleman did not survive.
Yeah. And by the way, I have always appreciated you, Brent, in your capacity as the sheriff in Polk County. If there is a death in Polk County, you send a press release. Maybe there are some that are a little more, like we don't do stories on anyone when it comes to suicide. We've never done one. I don't think I've even seen one from law enforcement that they send it out, and that's totally understandable, right? But in terms of the fatal crashes in Polk County, I applaud you for that. That's information I think if you were a citizen in Polk County or Washburn or Barron or Burnett, etc., I think that's stuff you should be sending out. It seems a little morose and sometimes kind of tough, but I think that is very important information. So I applaud you for always doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we just try to be as factual as possible and leave the emotion out of it, just to let people in the know. And these things take a toll on our community. And I typically, Ben, if you notice, I try not to even include photos because I feel the photos are traumatic oftentimes for those that are close to the victims. And we just want to basically tell the story and leave it at that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, side note, Adam Jarko is a volunteer firefighter and a good friend of mine. I'm a volunteer firefighter in St. Croix Falls. He's in Apple River, and I don't know that he was called to this particular crash, or I'm sure he got the page, but I don't think he went to this particular crash. But we've had discussions between the two of us on the effects of these types of crashes as it relates to first responders and to law enforcement, paramedics who actually have to go on scene and deal through that, both on a professional level, but then afterwards on a personal level. What kind of assistance does Polk County's Sheriff's Department offer to the community's first responders? Do you see an increase or stability in those emotions after a tough crash like that, Brent?
Absolutely. And in a small community, which Polk County is made up of all these small communities, there's times these volunteer firemen and first responders come out and they may even know the victim. I've had that happen to me where you come up to a crash and you know the victims, and it really is tough. Now, Kirk, you've put a lot of years in. There's so many things you have to do when you get to one of these scenes that you're busy. You don't have time to just sit and dwell on what is in front of you. But it's that aftermath where you relive the situation. So, we have peer support in the Polk County Sheriff's Office. We also have a chaplain, former Pastor Barry Schaefer. I'm going to give him mentioned, he's a fantastic resource for us, and he is also on a volunteer fire service over here. So we at times will do a debriefing after some of these, and I think all of us handle stress in different ways. And I don't think we always get it right, but we try.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been in at least one debriefing with Pastor Barry, and he does a phenomenal job. And certainly, I know that it took. You never get used to it, but I think that as first responders, talking it out is a really important part of that. And if you're not, and I'm speaking directly to firefighters or law enforcement, if you're not talking it out and getting that out, and it's bothering you, it's really important to do that. Reach out to your department, to your chief. There's no embarrassment or shame in saying that you have to talk about an incident and get it out of your system, because the rates of suicide and depression and things like that, and how it affects your family and even your job, are real. So make sure you take care of that. And kudos to the men and women who responded to that, because I know it is. It's extremely difficult to go to those scenes.
Do you guys think so? Both of you are I would put you one of the umbrella first responders, right? Law enforcement. Brent, you're the sheriff, and I'm sure you don't go to every single one. Maybe you do. I don't know how that works. But in law enforcement, and then Kirk, with you being a firefighter. Yeah, that sounds good what you just said, and it's a feel good thing, and you're probably right, and we should. But I watch enough TV shows. That's where I get all my law enforcement news, right? Just TV shows. And that really isn't accepted that much from peer to peer, or at least it used to not be. Is the pendulum swinging a little bit, and now it is a little more accepted, and it's okay to go and have those conversations for mental health when you are in law enforcement, when you are a firefighter?
I'll let Brent speak to law enforcement first. What do you think for law enforcement?
Absolutely. And this goes back when Brad Schimmel was the Attorney General in this state. He started this initiative because he recognized there's a trend in law enforcement suicides going up. And so the big thing is there's been a stigma. You're supposed to be that tough, gritty person who can handle anything. And the fact is we're people. We're just like everybody else. So I think we're chipping away at that stigma. And it is more acceptable, and we encourage our employees to seek out that, employee assistance, or reach out to their fellow brother and sister in law enforcement to seek help, because it is amazing. I always say this: it's amazing what you can get used to in this line of work, and it is at some point a negative. Even though we're on Positive Tuesday here, we have to talk about this. But
yeah, these are important topics, I think, and thank you again for both of you doing this. But these are, not everything is rainbows and puppies.
I will say that hanging out with a lot of law enforcement officers and firefighters, we can have some quirky humor around tough situations, and that's kind of where maybe some of it gets spun off is through the humor of things. But as a firefighter, our department at least takes it very serious. After a crash, we get back to the station as we're cleaning up. Our chief calls everybody into a circle. We talk out the situation. What were the goods? What were the bads? Is anybody struggling with things? And then there's always an open communication. I'm one of the individuals on our fire department that, with background in some social work type stuff, and pastoral type stuff, that I am an open door for people as well as any of the officers. So it's a very serious thing. So we take it serious. On another note, one of the things that I'm excited to talk to Brent about, and I've only heard little pieces of it, is Brent's experience as he went down to the southern border with Adam Jarko and Sheriff Knutson from St. Croix County. I think Tom Tiffany also was down at around that same time. And so there's been a number of people that have been going down there to see and hear for themselves what's going on at the border and how it's affecting even us up here in Wisconsin, which is a bigger deal because sometimes the further removed we are from things and we think, oh, that's 1,000 or 2,000 miles away, we don't see it. but the effects of those issues down there are actually trickling up here, which is one of the reasons that you went down to the southern border. So tell us a little bit. You were on the show while you were down there, but tell us a little bit about your trip down there and give us some highlights of what you learned.
Yeah, so it was about 2 years ago. Congressman Tiffany brought Sheriff Mark Lamb to Hudson, and we did a roundtable discussion on drug trafficking. And that's when I first met Sheriff Mark Lamb. Really charismatic, upfront, popular sheriff from Arizona. And he told us firsthand, you got to come and see this to believe it. You've got to see what he sees every day, the large amounts, the large quantities of drugs that he seizes through his law enforcement efforts. And Arizona is a unique area for sheriffs. There's only 15 sheriffs in the entire state, and Sheriff Lamb's county is the size of the state of Connecticut. So he's a massive county. And of course, as a smaller county, Polk County up in the Northwoods here, you're kind of in awe when you hear about that large of an area. Those Western sheriffs are true images of what you think of the Wild West. It really is still like that. So anyway, I had this opportunity. I've met Sheriff Lamb several times. Last year I was in Phoenix at the National Sheriff's Conference, and Sheriff Lamb was there. I bumped into him there. And again, he's always had this open invitation to come and see how this border crisis affects every community in the nation. Literally, I think the analogy is every community is now a border town because
I've heard that.
Because of this unlimited flow of, the criminal element. Now, what my takeaway on this was, it's you see desperate people. I mean, when we got down there the first day we spent with Sheriff Lamb, and he's not right on the border. He's about 60 miles north, and so he showed us. He has the people that are very stealthy sneaking through his county, and they're trafficking narcotics and human trafficking. And he showed us these areas where, they basically get to a kind of a sneaky little staging point, and they discard a lot of their property. So it's a mess. We found fake IDs laying there. We found pictures that were going to be used to make fake IDs. And so that he sees more of the criminal element. Then we got to go down to right on the Yuma border, which is a really busy area of the border crossing. And that's when you see kind of the toll on the humanity, the desperation of the people coming here. And I guess my takeaway was, I'm going to try to make this positive, Ben. Here, we live obviously in the greatest nation in the world. And the people who live here, I don't think appreciate it. When you see that people are desperate just to get here, and yet we're sitting in this great country, and we have a lot of people that focus on kind of tearing down our country right now. So I took away the fact that over 80 countries, the Border Patrol said over 80 countries have been represented of illegally crossing the border this year so far down there. Wow. And so people from all over the world are trying to come to the promised land here. And I think we should have a legitimate process instead of this illegal, illicit trafficking of people and sneaking in. It was eye-opening. I mean, as we pulled up, people were literally running, and Border Patrol was rounding them up.
While you were there?
What's that?
While you were there?
While we were there. And
so,
it was interesting to talk to the Border Patrol agents and see them work. We got to physically, sit and watch them work. And we got to talk to some of the people that had come across the Colorado River, still standing there with dripping wet shoes.
Mm-hmm. So, Brent, Polk County is known as a great county, but we do have a drug problem. And one of the drugs that we see in Polk County is meth. We don't hear too much about meth houses anymore where they're manufacturing it in Polk County, although maybe there's some still going on. But the majority of this is coming from outside of Polk County and streaming in from the Twin Cities or from other areas. What's the origination location of those drugs, and how are they getting here?
Well, I always say I give the legislators credit for this. Back in the early 2000s, they made Sudafed regulated. You have to get it now at a pharmacy and sign a book. Back in the 90s and 2000s, we were one of the number one lab counties. And because of that legislative piece, it eliminated the labs. We don't ever see a lab in Polk County. I can't recall the last time we've ever even had a lab. So it does all come across that southern border. And what is concerning is that the fentanyl as well. And the problem with fentanyl is it kills you, and it's a poisoning. And I think Sheriff Lamb says that the best. This is not an overdose. This is a poisoning. Mm-hmm. When you ingest something and it turns out something you didn't expect it to be, and it's laced with fentanyl, and you overdose and die, you're poisoned. So we see that. I've got a vehicle with fentanyl in it that we seized 2 weeks ago. This is a danger to everybody involved, Kirk. This is a danger to first responders going on scene of a car crash. You know, if you get any of that substance on you, it can instantly put you down. And so we have our deputies now carrying Narcan. And it's a problem. This is a plague in our community, and it's largely a border issue. And that's one of the reasons I went to, Kirk. I believe in finding a root cause. How do you address a problem if you're only treating the symptoms? If you find the root cause, I think you have a much better way of coming up with reasonable solutions.
Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
Sure. I think we can all agree that meth and fentanyl, these are not being made here. Fitzy's talked about that I think he said 100%, but maybe that was more of a hyperbole, but I believe he even said 100% of these drugs are coming from southern border, across southern border. Now, again, hyperbole or an exaggeration, the overwhelming majority are. We pretty much can all agree on that. I think, though, the question would be, obviously drugs are illegal, so therefore anytime you transport them, it's illegal. But are these coming from what you learned from, I don't know if they're called this, if I'm using the wrong word, I apologize, from illegals coming across the border? Or is this, that's like maybe a part of it, but really a lot of these drugs are coming over illegally through the normal channels, through the stop thing and, check it out. They've just figured out ways to do this.
Well, I think the fact that you can talk to these southern sheriffs, whether it's Texas or Arizona, and they can say that the current border policies have caused a major increase in the drug.
I've heard that too.
Mm-hmm. And so, I wasn't trying to politicize any of this. I really just wanted to look at it firsthand. Polk County, as you know, we always get this recognition for being such a high meth county. And a large part of that is because we go out and we work hard every day to make cases. And I've got a team of deputies that make it their focus to go out and find this substance. So I'm proud of the work we do here, but the problem with that is then you look like you got this major out of hand. You're the highest county for meth. Meth impacts every part of the northwest part of the state here. We're not unique. Mm-hmm. It's troubling that we could do a better job, and that's all I would say is we're capable of doing a better job than what we're doing right now. And I would encourage everybody to call for this. Let's do a better job. We can always get it better.
Yeah, I think the concern that really is concerning to first responders is that fentanyl is not just being laced into meth, it's being laced into marijuana, it's being laced into a variety of different drugs. And when you purchase that, you don't necessarily know that it's in there. And so you could think you're just taking a regular, what you've always taken drug, and suddenly you are down for the count and near death. And without the Narcan that first responders carry with them and apply, it's very likely that you will die. How many times has Polk County's deputies or law enforcement, do you have any numbers on how often they use Narcan?
It is several times a year. In fact, today I'm giving a deputy an award for using Narcan recently and saving the life. And it's, like I say, we've carried Narcan for a couple of years, and we're better. Honestly, we're better than most parts of the state. For whatever reason, the northwest part of the state hasn't seen as many of the overdose deaths. But when we started carrying this stuff, you thought, well, it's just another thing you throw in your car and probably not need. No, now you actually think about it every day that, hey, I might need to use this stuff.
Mm-hmm. So how do you do? So I have this. I'm always like in this gray area. I've lived my whole life in the gray. It, for the most part, hasn't really turned out very well for me, but that's just the way that my brain works. And if I'm not directly on the fence, I'm like just barely on one side or the other. I can see both points of view. So I want to bring this or kind of tie this up with your thoughts on, you had brought up the humanitarian part of these people coming across. I don't want, illegals coming across. I certainly don't want drugs coming across. But there's, I think you said 80 counties or 80 countries we've had people coming through and what they've had to go through. And for anyone who doesn't know, like how these people get there and the cost to them, both at the risk of their lives, but also financial cost to have these things done to get them illegally across the border. I want everybody in here too, though. Like the human element here is at what risk, right? We could stop some drugs, but at the same time, man, I can't. Like, it's easy for us to sit back and say, like keyboard warriors commenting on things on social media. It's easy. But when you're actually down there and you're seeing it, so when you saw this, when you saw these people coming across, yeah, you're down there to look at the drug element of it, but you had to see the human element too, right? And how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, and that's the part, Ben, where I say we're better than this as a country, because I saw the desperation. I saw one individual that was, it's hot. I mean, it was 99 degrees the day I was down there, and it was windy, so the dust is blowing, and that's considered a nice day. You get towards the summer months, and it's 120 degrees. So, the empathy I had, I could see that this was a tough journey these people had been on. We were able to talk to one of the border crossers who had come from Colombia, and we asked, was it safe? And absolutely it was not safe, he said, the people they encountered. And that's the side of it I think a lot of us don't know and understand, is how, Mexico doesn't have the standards we have for law and order, and that the drug element and the cartel element is largely in control of a lot of parts. So to get through those parts of Mexico, you owe a debt. And when you come here, that's the human factor. They say a lot of the females that come across the border at some point are sexually assaulted during their journey. That's the part that is just, you see these people, the desperation, and yet they're willing to do that to come to this country. And that's, we are the envy of the world. And we are capable of doing so much better for this. This has got to be addressed.
So when you came back, what was your biggest takeaway? So Polk County, I know when Dad was the sheriff, Washburn County Sheriff, for, 3 decades, I think, he would go to meetings. He would go to places. He would go maybe to something similar to this, not exactly this, but there were some detractors, right? There were some people who, where's the sheriff? Oh, using taxpayer dollars for this. And I don't know. Actually, that's probably a good question. I'm assuming that the taxpayers pay for this, right? So you can go down there, you learn about stuff, and bring it back to Polk County. So I should probably ask you, who paid for this?
I did not use any taxpayer dollars for this trip. I paid for this trip out of my own pocket.
I feel, so all of a sudden, I'm getting this feeling by looking at your face and how you answered it. I'm not the first person to ask that question. I'm just going to go out on a limb there. So, but when you come back, so you go to you go down there and it sounds, paid for it on your own pocket to learn about this. You come back and now you can do what? How does this help Polk County? How does it help the community and the citizens? You've got about 45,000 of them that you're responsible for in Polk County. How does that help?
Well, I can tell you it's a little defeating to see it, Ben, because as you know, we're scratching the surface when we make a meth arrest up here, when we make a fentanyl arrest. We're scratching the surface of this problem. The problem stretches far beyond what we can do. So I think for us, the challenge is how do we keep motivated to go out there and continue to attack this problem? And that's a solution, honestly, we're going to have to work at, because I don't have the answers for that. We are treating the symptoms of a much bigger problem.
So, Brent, one of the questions that was asked by Renee was, how do you dispose of meth after an arrest? Or in your case, you have a car that has fentanyl on it. What happens to those vehicles and homes and things that have this drug exposed to it?
That's a great question. So with the fentanyl, that poses such a threat. So we're likely going to have to utilize some type of a hazmat cleanup operation with that, because it poses such a danger. And this is the concern I have for everybody involved in the criminal justice. This could be a social worker doing a home visit that makes contact with this substance, and suddenly they could be immediately in trouble. I laugh because early years in law enforcement, you sometimes ate a sandwich while you were testing some marijuana. It was you didn't have these fears like you do now. We have implemented a process where when we test this substance, an unknown substance, you have to have a witness there with you, standing by with Narcan, so that if we would encounter and get it on our skin or something, but we glove up and things like that. But we have to hold on to the drugs. Oftentimes, we'll send them to the state crime lab. We label it as such, and it'll get tested. And then if we have any remaining in our evidence, it'll be properly disposed of. Oftentimes, we'll take a truckload to an incinerator, and it gets incinerated. If you notice, too, we have all these prescription drop boxes throughout the county. We don't want this stuff just going into our septic systems and down the plumbing. We want to dispose of it properly.
Do you use any of this stuff for not drug buys, because that would be money you would use? Do you use any of this stuff,
Training.
or can you use any of this? Maybe not the should part, but can you use some of this to, I don't know, bust other people who are looking to buy drugs?
No, we typically just use currency to
Sure.
buy the substance. And as far as the danger factor, and so many times it's an unknown substance now. You don't know what you have there until it's absolutely analyzed by a lab or you get the proper test back on what it is. So
Sure.
it's a tough situation.
Yeah, there's another question here. Is Sheriff Walk, I hear a resolution is on the way for finally getting your gun range done with ARPA funds. Can you explain how important this is for law enforcement? And also explain what is this for people who don't live in Polk County? Me. What is this?
Well, the county, as you know, I think every county got millions of dollars in ARPA funds, which were federal funds connected to COVID. And this money can be used for various things. When our Justice Center was built back in 2002, they built a spot for an indoor gun range for training. And as you know, Ben, anytime law enforcement uses deadly force, we are so scrutinized. And currently, the Polk County Sheriff's Office does not have a range. We have to rent range space at a gun club. We have to have, we're at a public gun range, so we oftentimes post signs that there's police training involved. We sometimes have to publish it in the paper if we're going to do a nighttime shoot, because we do train at nighttime because a large number of law enforcement deadly force encounters occur at nighttime. So anyway, the space is already here at the Sheriff's Office, and the space is currently being utilized just as a supply, just as a storage area. But it was built to be an indoor range, and they never had the funding to equip it properly. So with the county getting these ARPA funds, it was brought to my attention by one of the supervisors that, is there something the Sheriff's Office needs? And that's certainly on our wish list. I hope we get support for it. It would allow us to train at the shift level if we had our indoor range here. I think we could do some outreach. I think we could promote some concealed carry and do some training as well with the public. So it's a wish list. It's costly. I think the latest estimate is around $450,000 to finish it, and that's basically for air ventilation, the target backing, and then soundproofing. Because obviously,
I took a trip down to Hudson with a friend to pick up a gun that he purchased at the Bill's Gun Shop, and we used the indoor range at that facility, which was an old movie theater, oddly enough, the old cinema, and it was very soundproofed. From the outside, you didn't hear anything. From the inside, minimal noise, and then while you're shooting, this allowed for handguns all the way up to rifles, and it was very impressive with what I would envision what you're trying to do at the Sheriff's Department. Very much a great way to knock the rust off of some of those old deputies who don't get to the range enough. But what a great idea. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's an opportunity. I think we would, when the people who built this building, and that was obviously before my time, they had that vision that this would be, I think it could even lead to us being, on the cutting edge of hosting training for fellow law enforcement if we had this facility as well.
Good, then you can charge them. And
sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
Absolutely. And like I say, I worked in a police department before where we had a National Guard armory that had an indoor range, and we could always utilize that. Up here, we have nothing. And we used to shoot down in the Amory, the old dump, and then we lost that place to train. So for the last several years, we have been, and the gun clubs have been great to work with, but it's not our own facility, and it poses a risk today if you have to advertise that, hey, all the cops are going to be at this location training.
Right.
Now we have to post somebody as a security person. So to have a facility here and to get this money that isn't going to impact the pockets of the taxpayer, I think it's a win-win for us.
Guns, cool.
Speaking of ARPA funds, just to keep moving along here, because Ben's going to cut us off at some point.
Oh, yeah. We're at 45 minutes. Wrap it up, Kirk.
So, being the mayor of St. Croix Falls and on the fire department here, one of the main complaints that I've had for the communications aspects of fire, and if you know of St. Croix Falls, we're relatively flat until we get to the river, and then we take a very steep, degree angled cut down to the river, and radios go straight. So they don't do like a curve. And when you're in the valley of St. Croix Falls, we've had law enforcement officers that can't get out during shooting, during bar fights, during, emergencies where their life is being challenged. Or while we're doing search and rescue on the river. We've been asking the sheriff's department or the county to help us with a new repeater. And Brent was very instrumental in getting the use of ARPA funds into a proposal, which was approved for a new repeater on the other side of the river, which is basically going to alleviate 90% of that problem, Brent. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. And we have some of those incidents, Kirk, you're right, where we've had an officer fighting with somebody and they hit their radio to get out and it just doesn't work. And so a citizen calls on their cell phone to say, oh my gosh, your officer's fighting with somebody, get some help. So we were able to work with the city of Taylors Falls, Minnesota, and Chisago County Sheriff's Office to share some equipment, use their water tower to get a tower placed. And that, I think Kirk has taken about $350,000 of ARPA funds to make that happen. And we're hoping by the end of summer to be up and running. We've been over and getting all the process worked out and the agreements signed. And that's going to be a win-win to have better communications throughout that river valley, because you're right. You see it as a fire department, all the rock falls and the river issues in the state park, and a radio really doesn't even work when you're down there. So hopefully this will solve that issue, and we're really excited for the fire departments, the police, and sheriff's office members to have better communications.
We have one more question. We only have time for one more. Sheriff Walk, I'd be interested in, when are you going to start following court-ordered restraining orders and begin to arrest habitual offenders in Balsam Lake? That one, I believe, I'm just going to take a guess that Robert has a vested interest in that one, which is perfectly fine. Yeah. But, that's always been our policy. If there's a question, we'll put it up. We're transparent. That one may be more specific, so maybe needs to contact you privately. But what would you say to that? Yeah,
I'll just generalize, and I'll say I think we do a really good job here of sifting through court orders and trying to do the right thing. Sure. So I know we're in a tough spot. It's oftentimes when we're finished with our job, we don't make friends. So we try to be consistent. We try to base it on if there's probable cause. I mean, we follow the rules, and some things are not always black and white. There's some gray area.
There's very, very, very little time that there's an absolute right and absolute wrong. It's just, there's so much more nuance to it. So I 100% agree with you.
Right.
Brent, last point, I wanted to give you an opportunity to say thank you to someone made a donation for every squad car in Polk County's Sheriff's Department to get a AED. And as a firefighter, again, that's pretty important when you arrive on scene, that you have the ability to help defibrillate a individual who's having a heart attack or whatever it may be. Any comments on that?
Well, hold on a second, Kirk. Where'd you hear about this?
Where did I hear about it? I heard it on DrydenWire.
You gotta throw those plugs in, man.
DrydenWire is the only place to get news, isn't it? Do you know who that donor was, or was that an anonymous donor?
No, that was from the Franzen Bank. And they are such a fantastic organization that donates to a lot of the first responder, various agencies throughout the county. And we were lucky. They approached us and they wanted to do a contribution. And I'm going to give my communications Specialist Jill Stoffel. She worked with that Franzen Bank as well as the Lakes Area EMS group, and they got this $56,000 to buy enough defibs for every one of our vehicles in our fleet. And these devices are, Ben, you've been impacted by this in your family. You know the value of
Saves
having
lives, man.
Yeah.
So what a great opportunity. This is going to be life-saving for the citizens of Polk County.
Yeah, and the other one, Kirk, you may have also seen on DrydenWire. The anonymous donation that you would receive, that was kind of filtered through the Badger State Sheriff Association. And I can't remember what that was, though. What did you get, Brent?
So we, again, got to buy some equipment, and it had to be safety equipment to be utilized in high-risk situations. So we got a really expensive pole camera, and that's a camera on the pole that, you can look up into attics, you can look around corners with it. Very sophisticated. And also we got some additional ballistic armor protection.
Outstanding. Love it. I love seeing the support for law enforcement.
We love it. Well, thanks for being on the show with us today, Brent. I know our time's running out, and I've known Brent for 17 years, and I always got to give credit where credit's due. My 17-year-old son, who was 1 at the time, was having trouble breathing, and I called 911. I'm in a very rural area, and it took almost 25 minutes for an ambulance to get there, but it was just maybe 30 seconds. He just happened to be driving down my road, and was the moral support that I needed and the medical advice that I needed to help my son. And that was Brent Walk, and that was my first connection with him. He told me he had twins that were the same age, and now they play baseball, basketball, football together, and we've been really good friends. I've also served on the St. Croix Falls City Council with him before he was elected sheriff. And so thanks so much for being here.
It's the little things that make a big difference, right?
It is.
Like Dave Wilson. Oh, shoot, where is it? I got to give him a ding here. Yeah, so Dave Wilson, can't stand the guy, but you know what? He saved my dad's life, so now we're best friends.
Steak dinner for everyone.
No kidding.
Yeah, so it's just great to have people in leadership in the county that are doing great things. And we didn't even talk about it, but Brent, are you running for sheriff again? Your 4 years are up, or we have an election coming up. Do you have an announcement, or you want to tell anybody about anything?
Or is it secret?
Well, no, I am seeking another term as sheriff. It's been a crazy 4 years. I can't believe 4 years have gone by this quick. I think because of COVID, it seems like it just flew past. But no, I'm up for election this fall, and I will be seeking another term. Awesome.
We look forward to that campaign coming up. All right. Anything else then, Ben, or you want to hit the music?
Yeah, I'm good here. Thanks you, Brent. It's Kirk. No kidding. Excellent job, because what people don't know is that one of these days I'm not going to do one of these shows, and I need someone to host. And I've known you for a number of years, not 17. But we've been very close. I respect you so much as a man, as a husband, as a Christian, as a first responder. I don't know how you do as a mayor. I have no idea. I don't live there. I'm assuming you do a good job, but I don't really know what that even means. Like, how do you...
I got reelected.
You got reelected. There you go. So I'm assuming you're doing a pretty good job.
Okay.
So no, thank you so much for doing this. It's been really fun kind of seeing this side of it and not having to do the hosting and all the stuff that kind of goes with it. There's more behind the scenes that you realize to do that. So thank you for doing that. And I look forward to having you, Kirk, back on with another guest here, hopefully in another month. And then to have you host one of your own shows. This is going to be awesome. So, and Brent, thank you for filling in for Fitzy. Don't tell him, but I think you did a lot better than he usually does. Don't tell him now. He's not watching.
I think you're up to almost 100 shows now.
Yeah, this is our 93rd or 94th, something like that, yeah.
You're going to have a big celebration for 100. That's a huge, that's monumental.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be
congratulations
awesome.
on that.
Thank you very much.
All right, filling in for Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald, I'm the mayor of St. Croix Falls, Kirk Anderson. And our guest today was Polk County Sheriff Brent Walk. And as always, it's an honor to work with the legend, Ben Dryden. You've been watching Positive Tuesdays.
I'm not even paying him for this. That's awesome.
You've been watching Positive Tuesdays with Ben and Fitzy. presented by Professional Exteriors and Interiors. With nearly 20 years of experience, this locally owned and operated business provides quality work on the outside and inside of your home or business. So give Brian a call at 715-520-2271. As we sign off, remember, it's the little things that make a big difference. Thanks for watching, and have a blessed and positive day.
So, Kirk, Brent, you brought up Taylor's Falls. So I went through there recently. I think I don't have St. Croix Falls right. When you go down the big hill heading towards Minnesota, and you get down to the very bottom, is that Taylor's Falls, or am I still in St. Croix Falls?
You are in.
Go ahead, Kirk.
You're in St. Croix Falls until you hit the river. Once you cross the river, you're in Minnesota.
Okay. I didn't know that.